Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Virginia, and today I have 30 Valentine's Day DIYs to share with you. These were all so fun to make, and I don't know about where you live, but where I am, we are getting some snow, so it is the perfect crafting weather. So grab a cup of coffee or tea, settle in, and I hope you enjoy these 30 DIYs. I actually picked these up off of Amazon. I'll leave it linked down below. I got a bunch in a pack and they're really big. I think the ones at the Dollar Tree are maybe 10 inches and this one was 14. So I'm using some painter's tape to tape out how I want everything. I got out a tape measure and was going to be precise, and I ended up just kind of guesstimating where I thought everything should go. So I laid down the paint, and in the bottom section, I'm just using some white paint to fill that in. I want the bottom half to be buffalo check, so I'm starting by taping that out. I'm going to be taping down horizontal pieces, and I'm just using the tape also as a spacer. So I'm laying down one piece of tape, laying down another, and then one additional one, and then that piece of tape that's in the middle I'm going to pull apart. Of course, if you have really thick painter's tape, you'll want to measure this out, but that's why I like using the thinner painter's tape. I basically just use this as my own measuring. So now you will see there are spaces in between, and with that I am painting it a dark gray. This color is, I believe, called Charcoal by Waverly, and I'm just laying down a coat of that. Once that paint has dried, I'm removing the painter's tape, which is so satisfying because they are nice crisp lines. And now we're going to be doing the same thing, but in the opposite direction. So before I was laying down my pieces horizontally, and now I'm going to be going vertically. So laying down a piece of painter's tape, using this used one as my spacer in between, and then laying down another. So you're basically just repeating the exact same process that you did, just the other way this time. Once I have everything all taped out and I've pressed down the tape to make sure that the paint won't bleed through, I'm going in with the exact same color that I used previously on the horizontal stripes. Again, this is Charcoal by Waverly, so I'm going over that and painting all of those blank spaces in. The final step, you want to make sure that your paint is absolutely completely dry, and we're going to go back in with some horizontal stripes. It's a little bit difficult to see on camera, but the parts that are originally white are showing through. So I'm just going back in, and on those areas that are white, I'm covering with the horizontal tape one last time. And now I'm going in with black. So I'm dotting pretty much the areas that are going to be black. You can kind of see where the gingham squares are going to be. And then again, wait for this to completely dry before you do any peeling back of your paint tape. I had to include this part in because it is so satisfying to see. Once everything is completely dry, you can begin removing all of that painter's tape, and what will be left behind is this gorgeous buffalo check pattern. The next step is going to be taping out the middle section. This is the section that I'm going to be painting red and eventually putting the saying Hello Valentine on. So again, I guesstimated. You can take out your ruler and make sure everything's precise, but I just kind of guessed where I thought center was and then went in with the shade Crimson by Waverly to paint our center red stripe. The final section that we need to paint on our wood round is the top, so I'm taping it out, and this one's really easy because I'm just painting it plain black. So I just went in with the shade Black by Apple Barrel. That is my go-to, and just painted the entire top. I did end up using 2 coats of this. These wood hearts are from the Dollar Tree. I got them in a pack and thought they were so cute. They are a just natural wood color, but I wanted them to be a little bit brighter of a white, so I went in with the same shade white that I used on the buffalo check, and I painted those hearts, and we're going to leave them to dry while we work on our bow. We're going to be creating a simple X bow. So I picked up this tool from the Dollar Tree, and I wasn't really sure how to use it. I've never crafted with it before, so it just kind of rolled into tubes. So I placed that to the side while I started laying down my pieces of ribbon. You just need 2 of them, and you place them in an X formation. I layered the ribbon again in an X formation in the patterns that I liked on top of one another, and then grabbed a zip tie and zip tied right through the center to keep everything in place. It doesn't matter about the lengths yet. We're going to get to that in just a second. So once you have your ribbon all zip tied together, this is when it's really nice. If you have wired ribbon, you can kind of manipulate the ribbon, pull it around, and again, trim those tails. I like to do dovetails on my X bows. Again, this was my first time working with this tubey tulle kind of ribbon. I don't really know what to call it. So I just shaped it into an X and then took another zip tie to attach everything. But let me know in the comments down below, how do you use this type of ribbon from the Dollar Tree? I wasn't exactly sure what to do with it, but I did end up liking how it turned out. Now that my white hearts are all dried, I'm laying those down across the top black section of our wood sign. They did have little sticker dots on the back of them, but I also placed it down with some hot glue. I used my vinyl cutting machine to cut out Hello Valentine and place that in the center section. The Dollar Tree does sell those galvanized signs around Valentine's Day, so that would be a cute alternative if you don't own a cutting machine. This next DIY takes very easy to find Dollar Tree items and gives them an upscale touch. This is actually based off of something that I saw at Kirklands for about $30, so let's DIY it for less. This wood sign and the wood hearts are from Dollar Tree, but I didn't like the glittery pink on the hearts, so instead I took the shade Ballerina by Waverly and painted over the glitter and just painted them a plain kind of muted pink. For the Dollar Tree sign, I didn't like the wood backing. I wanted the hearts to pop a little bit more, so I just grabbed some white cardstock and placed that in the back of our sign. Now I'm going in with every other heart, red and pink, and just placing that all around our sign. I did use my cutting machine to write out "You Have My Heart." This is an exact dupe of the one that I saw at Kirklands, but if you don't have this, you can just write it out yourself, or again, use one of the galvanized signs from Dollar Tree. They have some really cute ones out right now. Okay, this next DIY is using an unlikely supply. I'm actually taking the salt and pepper shakers that you can find in the kitchen section at Dollar Tree, and we are going to turn them into this Valentine's Day decor piece. Like I said, these are found in the kitchen section, usually the last aisle with the other glassware. I'm taking just a white chalk paint and going over our glass jar. Then once all of the white paint had dried, I went in with Waverly Antique Stain, or Waverly Stain in the shade Antique, and my apple barrel chip brush, and I just dirtied everything up to give it more of that rustic kind of farmhouse look. Using the same white shade, I took the wood hearts from the Dollar Tree. I really liked the shape of these ones. They're a little bit skinnier and longer than the ones that I used in the previous DIY. And I just painted those white, and also with some leftover lace trimmings that I had, I wrapped that and hot glued it in the back of the salt and pepper shakers. And then I went in with my hot glue again to place down some bows. It is so cold here right now, I can't even imagine thinking of spring at the moment, but my Dollar Tree did have spring florals. So I took these faux, I think it's lavender picks, and I placed those down in the salt and pepper shakers. And now I'm going to put some hearts on sticks so I can also tuck those down into the salt and pepper shakers. Again, I did one more coat of the white on the hearts because I realized I forgot to paint the backs, and I'm hot gluing them on bamboo skewers. I think you can get a pack of about 100 also in the kitchen section of the Dollar Tree. So the red hearts I didn't like. I didn't think it went with the purple of the lavender, but the pink ones I did like, so I didn't paint those. I just grabbed my hot glue and also hot glued those onto the bamboo skewers. Next up is a really quick and really easy one. So if you're not that big of a crafter or just don't have a lot of time on your hands, this is a simple and subtle way to bring Valentine's Day into your home. It's keeping in with those neutrals. So again, you don't have the bright red and pinks kind of messing up your regular decor. I cut out a heart out of some cardboard that I had. I used this wood heart from the Dollar Tree as basically something that I could trace around. And then it's super simple. I took white yarn. This one is from Walmart. I actually made a candy corn DIY with it. I'll insert a picture last year. Guess it is last year now that it's 2024. So I went around that with the plain white yarn. Then I had this really pretty kind of fluffy chenille yarn, but I don't like to use it because I haven't been able to find it again at the Dollar Tree. So I just went over the top of the plain yarn with this one. So it's all that you can really see, but you don't know that it's the plain white yarn underneath it all. I picked up this wood piece in the shape of a coffee cup back in the autumn, and I didn't really know what to do with it. I kind of just displayed it as is, but I kept it in my craft stash because I thought it'd be cute. I was gonna do something hot cocoa themed with it for winter, but I blinked and all of a sudden it's Valentine's Day crafts, so I'm moving on and creating a Valentine's Day coffee mug. The exact buffalo check style that I did in the first DIY of today's video, I'm doing here, but instead of doing horizontal and vertical lines with my painter's tape, I'm doing them at a slight diagonal, a little bit of an angle. I've just never done that before and thought this would be a good experiment. Surprise, I really like the way it turned out, so I might be doing this in future ones. You do it the exact same as you did the previous one, but again, instead of straight horizontal, it's slightly diagonal horizontal, and you go down with your first coat. In this case, I'm using this pale pink. Then I'm going to go the exact opposite way, but again, I'm doing it at a slight diagonal using a little bit of tape again as my spacer tape, just like I did in the first DIY. Once my tape is all laid down and I've really pressed it in to make sure that the paint won't bleed through, I went in with the exact same pink shade. Again, this is called Ballerina by Waverly. Once that is completely dry, you can see a little better on this one than you could in the black and white buffalo check, but I'm going in the opposite direction over the areas where the white is showing, and instead of using black paint, I am using red, the color Crimson by Waverly. And when everything was dried and I peeled it off, I absolutely loved the buffalo check effect with that slight diagonal in the center. The theme of the bows in today's video are, I guess, expos, because I did it again for this one. I really liked how it looked on the first DIY. Again, you're just going to take 2 strips of ribbon and put them in an X formation. I pinch them in the center and secure with a zip tie, and then I can really fluff around the different pieces of ribbon and add the little dovetails to the end. I did make a small raffia bow that I hot glued to the top to kind of hide where the zip tie was. And then of course I had to make it a little bit more farmhouse, so I used my Waverly Stain in Antique and just went around the edges of the coffee cup. For the final touch, I had a bag of glitter heart stickers I picked up at the Dollar Tree, so I put one of the glitter hearts in the center of our wood coffee cup. Since that last DIY was pretty bright and on point for Valentine's Day, let's switch it up and do another neutral one. I'm making a candle stand, but really you could put anything that you want on this, and we're going to make it in the neutral farmhouse style. So I grabbed one of these wood hearts from the Dollar Tree. They have them every year and I love them. I made faux cookies with them last year and I painted the entire thing white. Next, I went in and distressed the heart using my Waverly Stain in the shade Antique. And to make it actually a riser, I'm going to be putting little wood beads on the bottom of it, 2 underneath the round part of the heart, and then 1 at the point in the bottom. I picked up the wood beads from the Dollar Tree. I found them in the Crafter's Square section, and I painted them in the same shade of white and did the same distressing technique on them that I did on the hearts. First off, the milk pitcher is from the Dollar Tree. It came out when the Dollar Tree had a farmhouse collection. I know that you can still find it. This one had a rooster on the back, but I just flipped it over because instead I'm going to be adhering a wood heart onto it. This is one of the wood heart stickers. So I went ahead and hot glued that down, and that's pretty much all I'm going to be doing to the actual milk container. And now I'm moving on to what I'm going to fill it with. So starting off, I have some of these faux marshmallows, which I made last year. I will link that video up above, but to make sure that they stayed in the positions that I liked for this milk pitcher, I did hot glue down some floral foam down into the base of the pitcher. That way the marshmallows were able to stay in one spot. Originally I had just stuck them in and they were all kind of, since they're a little bit heavy on top, they were all just kind of sliding to one side of the milk pitcher. So once I had those all lined up, I moved on to making some of these love letters. I found this in the Cricut Design Space app. I will have it linked down below, but there's nothing stopping you guys from also just cutting this out of some construction paper on your own. I used the red and I'm just folding it up to make the envelopes. I did 3 different sizes and 3 different colors. I did red and purple and also a pink version. And then each of these had a larger heart on them. For the bigger envelopes, like the pink one and the purple one, I used the felt heart stickers from the Dollar Tree. And then I used some of this table scatter on the small white envelopes. I really liked the glittery red, but those hearts were too big for the envelope, so I just cut them a little bit smaller so that they would fit on mine. I hot glued those also on the larger red ones, and then it was time to start adding these into our pitcher with the marshmallows. I took some bamboo skewers. I use these all the time as my pick sticks. You can find them in the kitchen section of the Dollar Tree. I painted them white, and then I just hot glued the envelopes right onto the sticks and started assembling that in the picture. You might also notice the love letter sign. I made that about 2 years ago. I'll insert a picture and also link that video. I did a US mail sack full of the love letters, and I wanted to repurpose this since we're gonna have love letters too. So on the handle section of the milk pitcher, I tied the love letters onto that, and I did end up adding a tiny bit of hot glue just to make sure that it wouldn't slip and slide around. Normally, to conceal floral foam, I'll add in some Spanish moss or another type of greenery, but in this case I wanted to just add some of this filling. I thought it kind of looked like cotton candy coming out and went with the sweet faux marshmallow theme. I also added in a glittery heart pick down into the center of our love letters picture. All of the DIYs today are really quick and easy ones. They're even on the smaller side. Again, I think that they would all be perfect for a tiered tray. The base of this is just some spare wood that I had around. I took this wood block and painted it white. I was originally going to do a pink polka dot border, but changed my mind, decided to go with the buffalo check. I also stained a bunch of the tumbling tower blocks that you can find in the kids' toy section at the Dollar Tree, and pretty much just made a frame around this. The focal point, of course, are the glittery hearts, which are the table scatter from the Dollar Tree. I thought they were the perfect focal point. Next up, we're going back to the faux sweets. I did this spoon full of Valentine's Day sprinkles and also this dice that I transformed into a marshmallow. I took one of the dice, again, you can find it in the children's toy section at the Dollar Tree. They're usually a really bright color like a neon orange or a green. I painted it white, and then I cut out this chocolate dripping out of some brown vinyl. I just found this on Cricut Design Space, but you could even print this out and then cut it if you wanted to, if you don't have a Cricut machine. For the top, I'm just using my favorite dark brown color by Apple Barrel to make it look like we have chocolate on top of the marshmallow too. Forgot to hit record when I was making the faux whip topper, but this is how I did it. I ran out of the cake decorating bags, but I do have the tips. So I just used a Ziploc baggie and placed the tip down in there. Now, usually I use the Dollar Tree spackling for all of my faux whip toppers, but I found this at the Dollar Tree and I think it works even better because you don't need to mix it like you do the spackling. And I actually thought it was a lot easier to squeeze out. I just placed this down in the Ziploc, and then I'm going to do a little example for you. Since I totally forgot to hit record, that is my bad, but this is how it comes out. It is a perfect faux whip topper. So once I placed that on top of my marshmallow, I wanted a little accessory to go with it. I picked up these wood spoons in a 4-pack from Temu, placed a little bit of Mod Podge on there, and then a bunch of Valentine's Day sprinkles. I picked these up from Amazon. I'll link them below. I grabbed them a year or two ago, and the bag is massive, so these sprinkles were a little bit pricey because they're from Amazon, but they have lasted me years, so they were definitely worth the investment. I'll link those down below. And lastly, to finish off our wood sprinkle spoon, had to add a little bit more Valentine's Day charm there, so I wrapped some lace ribbon around the handle and tied it off into a bow. I love the way these two look together, especially on the top section of my tiered tray. Next up, an easy one. I took one of the blocks from the Crafters Square section of the Dollar Tree and gave it a Valentine's Day makeover. So this block I actually used a couple years back when I made a Frankenstein and I think a Dracula out of some wood blocks for one of my Halloween DIYs. So that is why it was painted black, but I'm gonna transform it for my tiered tray. I took the color Crimson by Waverly. Then once that was all dry, I went in with my chip brush and some white paint to distress it. For the center of the block, I used a felt heart sticker from the Dollar Tree. These come in a large pack of all different sizes and colors of hearts. I went with the larger white one and I placed that right on the front of our wood block. This is a great item for a tiered tray because you can put it on top of things or put things on top of it if you want to create some layering dimensions in your tiered tray. I love decorating the rolling pins from Hobby Lobby for all sorts of different holidays and seasons. So for this one, since I kind of had the faux sweets theme going, I thought the rolling pin would look perfect on the bottom of the tiered tray. Last time I had used this was the fall, so I needed to give it a fresh coat of paint. I painted the rolling pin actual section white, and I even went over the handles with white because I did end up going in with some ballerina pink by Waverly. So just so that it was a little bit easier to show up. Instead of putting it right on top of those blue handles, I painted them white, kind of as a primer first. I went back in with those beloved felt heart stickers. I guess that's the theme for today's video. I really do enjoy this craft item from the Dollar Tree. And next I went in with the ballerina pink shade from Waverly to cover up the handles of our rolling pin. The lace ribbon I used previously on the spoon with the Valentine's Day sprinkles. I'm using that same ribbon again to make a little bow, which I'm going to place on the upper left-hand corner of the rolling pin. To secure that in place, I used one of the sticker dots. I love those from the Dollar Tree. The rolling pin, I reuse this item season after season, so instead of using hot glue, it's nice to just have something a little bit more removable. This next one I saw on Pinterest and thought it was too cute to pass up. It's so tiny and I thought it'd be perfect on my tiered tray. The white piece of paper is 3 inches by 1¼ inches. The buffalo check is 3 inches by 1 inch. And then the pink piece of paper is 3 inches by 1 inch, and I did round the corners. In the Pinterest I saw, the girl who I believe created this pattern used some little tiny chocolate bars, but I didn't have those, so I just used these two candies and hot glued them together. The white with the buffalo check is going around it. That's going to be the top section of the mailbox, and then the pink section is the bottom and the back of our mailbox. Obviously, if you want to actually be able to eat the candies, then don't hot glue them. Make sure you're just hot gluing on the paper, but this is just for show, so I was putting that hot glue everywhere, especially on the back of the mailbox. That's where I placed down the pink piece of paper and kind of rounded it so it went underneath the mailbox. I had some really fun glittery red paper, so I took my heart hole puncher and hole punched out a bunch of hearts. I placed one on the lip of the mailbox holder, and then I also took a really tiny slim piece. This is going to be the flag on my mailbox, and I cut that out of the same red sparkly paper, hot glued that on the side, and instead of having a flag on top, I added another one of those sparkly red hearts. This is such a cute, tiny DIY and is perfect for an addition on any Valentine's Day themed tiered tray. Next up is a message in a bottle, not just any kind of message. We're gonna have love letters in a bottle. This glass bottle actually contained some honey in it originally, so once I cleaned that out, I placed it to the side, and now it lives in my craft stash. I made a bow out of some of this Dollar Tree ribbon, and then I used some hot glue to attach the bow onto the glass bottle, and I even took a little heart sprinkle and placed that in the center. For the messages that are going to go into my bottle, I wanted the pages to be ripped so they look like old love letters. So I just ripped out some pages out of my, I'm calling it my scrapbook. I have read it and now it is being repurposed for crafts. I took all of the edges and ripped them so there wasn't any nice straight edges, and then rolled it up before tying it off with some jute ribbon. This one is a little bit of a purple lavender color, and I just tied the love letters off with that. I made about 3 or 4 of them and had a couple different sizes going there and tucked them down into the glass honey jar. I love the way this turned out. It didn't quite fit on my tiered tray, but I did have it off to the side. Let me know down in the comments below which DIY was your favorite, and please do not forget to hit the like button. It really helps out my channel, and make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already. Also, let me know in the comments, do you guys decorate for Valentine's Day? I'm so curious to know. And this first DIY might look a little bit complex, but it's actually super easy, and it's using some supplies from the Valentine's Day section and also the party section. This silver tray, if you watched all the way back in the summertime, my bridal shower video, I actually used it as a tray for some syrups at my bridal shower, but I'm repurposing it into a Valentine's Day sign. I'm going to be covering the center of it, but all around the edges, I took some white Waverly chalk paint, my favorite, and just painted all around the outsides. Then for the inside section, I went in with this buffalo check pattern scrapbooking paper, which I picked up from Hobby Lobby. Now for the main piece, what's going to be going on our sign, I picked up these wood ornaments from the Dollar Tree. They have a wide variety of different kinds that you can choose from. I liked these ones that had the cutout heart in the center. I'm going to be going in with some of those heartwood stickers in just a little bit. But first off, I need to paint my wood heart ornaments. I went in with the color Crimson by Waverly. This has been my go-to red for the Valentine's Day season. Then to cover up the holes on the wood ornaments, I'm going to be making 2 small bows to cover that up. So I'm going to show you guys how to do a fork bow. Once you have your ribbon around your fork in this V formation, you will take the top section and tuck it under the center of the fork and then pull it up behind and also through the center of the fork. And then from there, you just make a small knot. And while I'm making my knot, I do try to grab the little ribbon parts and pull them downward. That way I don't have the tails kind of going in lots of different directions. You can also do this once you pull it off of the fork. You can manipulate the ribbon and the tails how you want, but it's a little bit easier when you are making the knot to just pull them down. I found that always works out really nicely. Then I just grabbed some scissors to dovetail the ends before hot gluing them onto our wood heart ornaments, again to cover up those small holes. Because these wood ornaments had a heart cut out in the center of them, I wanted to fill it so it didn't have the buffalo check background. So I grabbed some of these wood hearts. They came in a pack from the Dollar Tree, and these had the glittery pink on them, and I just hot glued those to the back so that they shined through on the heart cutouts. Finishing touches for this DIY, we first have to hot glue the wood hearts down onto the silver platter turned Valentine's Day sign, and the absolute finishing touch was this bow. I actually made it last year and I kept it because I really liked it. It's an X bow. I will link above. I did a tutorial on how to do X bows in last week's video, so if you guys don't know how to make them, you can click the link above to learn how. Moving on to our next DIY, the Dollar Tree year after year always has these wood hearts for sale, and they're really fun to DIY. But even if you can't find these, you can always take some cardboard, that tends to be my go-to, and transform that. So this is what the hearts look like. They're modeled after the conversation hearts, you know, the little heart candies that you can get. But I'm going to be transforming it by taking one of these wallpaper stick-ons, placing it on it, and then I'm using my X-Acto knife just to trim everything. You could use scissors, but the knife got a lot closer to the edge and kind of gave a cleaner cut. So I decided to go like this, and then it just popped right off. I made sure all of the edges are down. This is a stick-on tile, so I didn't have to add any hot glue or anything. Then once I made sure the edges were nice and they weren't, you know, poking out and jagged, I went over it again with my favorite red color. It is Crimson by Waverly. I wanted to have a tag on my heart sign, so I did cut out this tag using my Cricut. Same with the handle with care, I used my cutting machine, but very easily you could just print something like this out and then cut it out. I wanted it to look distressed because that is my favorite for Valentine's Day. I like everything looking weathered, kind of like it's a long lost love letter. So I just used some red paint and also some brown for the tag. Next, to really make sure that that really beautiful texture of the wallpaper was showing through on the heart, I went over it just lightly brushing with some white paint, and then the texture of that wallpaper really came through. Starting to add all the embellishments together, I grabbed some lace ribbon and tied that around the center of the heart. And then I had my handle with care tag, and I'm also going to be using a key that I have. So for the tag, I had to hole punch a hole in it so I'd be able to thread it onto the lace. And I was also trying to figure out how I wanted the key to hang when I placed it on top of the handle with care sign. It kind of hid it, so I ended up just taking both off and instead threading the key through the lace and tying that off, and I decided to use something different for the handle with care tag. I had some of this gold wire. The gold really matched the gold in the key, which I thought was a nice tie-in, so I wrapped that around the heart sign and threaded the handle with care around that and just secured it off in the back. Please let me know in the comments down below if you have any plans for Valentine's Day this year. Currently, I do not have anything planned, but maybe some of your comments can spark my creativity and I can plan something to do. So make sure to leave a comment down below. This next DIY is great if you have some of those conversation hearts in your house, but maybe you're like me and you do not like the way that they taste, but I do like all of the colors of them, so I decided to use it as a DIY instead of actually eating them. I'm taking a candle holder. It's really just a glass container that I found at the Dollar Tree and also one of their glass candlesticks. I filled up the bottom section with the conversation hearts and then placed down a candle inside. And then I went all around the candle with the conversation hearts. Again, I don't like the taste of these, so I'm not going to be eating them. If you want to eat them afterwards, put on some gloves. Let me know in the comments down below if you're someone who likes the taste of these hearts. I feel like it's kind of like candy corn. You either love it or you hate it. So once I filled up the jar all around the candle with the conversation hearts, I did take some hot glue and I hot glued it on top of that glass candlestick holder. I have also seen on Instagram where instead of a candle, you can do this with a larger vase. And again, instead of sticking a candle down in your glass jar, I've seen people put down some fresh flowers, which is a really pretty look too. So if you're not into the candles, you could just replace that with some fresh flowers. That would be really pretty to add some even more color into your Valentine's Day decor. Next up, I think is my favorite one in the video. I really like using these styrofoam cones from the Dollar Tree and transforming them. I made some candy corn out of them for Halloween. So I'm doing something kind of similar here, but just for Valentine's Day. So I took the styrofoam cone and a mop from the Dollar Tree. You can buy the mop heads from the Dollar Tree, and I find that it's a really similar texture to the jute rope that you will find in the Crafter's Square section, but you get way more for $1.25 than what they give you on the jute rope. So I started cutting off pieces of this mop and hot gluing it all the way around the styrofoam cone. Sometimes the Dollar Tree doesn't have the supplies in stock that we need, like in my case, the jute rope. So I had to be resourceful and use an alternative like this mop head, and I've actually really enjoyed using it. Again, I think it's a better bang for your buck. Next, I took one of these sparkly heart picks and I placed this down in the center of the styrofoam cone. It went down right inside perfectly because it just sunk into the styrofoam, and I believe this came in a 4-pack from the Dollar Tree. Next, I had some twine that was purple and white colored. It came in a larger pack from the Dollar Tree, of course from the Crafter's Square section again, and I put this in between every 3 rows of the mop just for a little pop of color. The Dollar Tree sells these felt heart stickers. They're in 3 different sizes and 3 different colors, pink, red, and white. So I went with the pink and the red, and I just started sticking these all around my cone. It's even better because I didn't have to use the hot glue gun because they already have the sticky side to them. The next DIY for today's video are going to be 2 different kinds of candles. The first one I don't fully show, but I did show it in a previous DIY video, again, my bridal shower video. All that I did was take a spring napkin that I found at the Dollar Tree and use my small heat press, but you could also use an iron to melt the napkin onto the candlestick. But for this DIY, I'm going to be using one of the large candles that you can usually find either in the Crafter's Square section of the Dollar Tree or in the section where they have the other glassware and usually faux florals. This was a plain white candle, so I used some dark red vinyl to cut out XOXO, but you could use paint or even a red marker to adhere this. Then for the finishing touch, I took some raffia and tied that around the top of the candle off into a bow. We're going to be using some paper crafting and this item from the Target dollar spot to create this DIY. I loved the little mini envelopes with their Valentines in this DIY. I did find a project in Design Space and that's how I cut this out, but you can always just cut out a similar shape by printing it and then creating the envelope shape, or there are a couple of links that I will provide down below with some envelopes that you can print and fold out yourself. So I am creating lots of different types of envelopes. I made some smaller ones. These are my larger envelopes, which are in the red. And to do this, I'm just using craft paper, nothing special, and just my Elmer's glue stick to hold everything together. And then I also added some embellishments using my Dollar Tree items. I used the little felt hearts on these medium-sized envelopes, and then I went in with some red hearts on my purple envelopes. And I also made some super tiny envelopes, and for those, I cut out some hearts out of some larger glittery hearts from the Dollar Tree. They were way too big for these envelopes, so I just kind of cut around them to make my smaller heart. But they were the perfect size for the red Valentines. Again, this was just some table scatter from the Dollar Tree that I hot glued on to the front of my Valentine. So now that all of our paper crafting is out of the way, we're going to start with assembly. I found this adorable, I'm not even sure what it's supposed to be, like a little gumball vending machine or something, a little cart. I just thought it was adorable, and for $5, it was amazing quality. I did tuck down some Dollar Tree fabric in the bottom so that my Valentines didn't fall all the way to the bottom of this. And to kind of create an area in the center, I got these plastic hearts last year from the Dollar Tree, and I didn't use anything to craft them with. So I placed this down in the center just so that I wouldn't have to use as many Valentines and envelopes. If you want to go ahead and create twice or 3 times as many as I did, then you can fill the entire, I think it's supposed to be a popcorn cart. You could fill the entire popcorn cart up with your Valentines, but to save me from making too many, I placed this heart in, and then I was able to hot glue some of the Valentines onto the heart. But you could also use an empty paper towel roll or just put some more fabric or filling in there so that you don't have to actually fill the entire carton up. For the outside, I took a little bit of hot glue and placed 2 of my favorite Valentines on there. And then you might recognize this DIY from last year. It was my Love Letters mail bag, and I really liked the sign that I had made, the love letter sign. So I went ahead and tied that up at the top to complete this DIY. I love how it came out. I love all things miniature, and I just thought this one was so cute. This next Valentine's Day craft is really just a makeover on an already adorable Dollar Tree item that I just wanted to add a little something extra to. This would be a great DIY if you're not looking for a massive undertaking or huge Valentine's Day project, but you just want to do a little bit of crafting. So this was a very cute bead garland from the Dollar Tree, and it did say hugs on it, and I just thought that I could make it a little bit more high-end looking. So I went in with the shade Crimson by Waverly in the chalk paint, and I went ahead and covered the entire heart, the front, the back, and the sides in the red color. Then I just went in and added a couple of ribbons. I really liked this lace one. I thought it added a nice texture to the DIY. And then I also went in with a little bit of just plain white ribbon. I thought it was a nice counter to the lace and brought in more of that brightness to that dark red color on the heart. Then the final touch to make it a little bit more shabby chic was adding in a small jute bow to the center of the heart. Not a difficult or time-consuming DIY, but a few simple additions make a big impact. Next up, we're going to move on to a little bit of a larger DIY project. We are going to create this heart picture frame with the hearts kind of floating on this gold wire. And the first thing, the item that I use in quite a few DIYs, I love the faux wood frames from the Dollar Tree. If you see them, definitely pick them up because I use them in quite a few of my projects. I did distress it a little with some white paint just to give it more of that farmhouse look. For this craft, we're going to be creating 3 different strands of some nice glittery red hearts. So to do this, I grabbed some gold wire that I had, and I am just kind of measuring out how much of the wire I'm going to need. And then once I have cut all of that out, I went in with the hot glue to adhere the wire down to the back of our frame. And again, I'm going to be using 3 strands of that gold wire, kind of making it in a diagonal shape. So starting off high on the left side and then swooping down lower on the right side. So once I kind of had all of these in place, this is my structure. It's time to start adding in the Valentine's Day decor to this project. Since we are going to be using some bright red glittery hearts, I wanted a more muted bow, so I went with the black and white buffalo check ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I made a large bow, and I have a much more detailed tutorial on how to recreate this bow, so I'll leave that linked at the top of this video so that if you all do want that bow tutorial, you can check it out. But if you already know how to make bows, then you'll just place one in the bottom left-hand corner of your frame. Now we are going into the glittery hearts. These are the same ones that I used in the previous Valentine's Day enveloped DIY. These are table scatter, so I'm just grabbing some hot glue and placing it on the gold wire and then onto the hearts so that they are adhered down onto our gold wire frame. I recommend using a low temp heat gun for this section, or if you're like me, I don't think mine has a temperature control. So after I had left it on, I turned it off, and while it was starting to cool, I used the hot glue because I wanted to really use my fingers and make sure that the hearts were adhered to the gold wire and didn't flip over. So using my fingers in the hot glue was definitely a plus. So again, I really recommend using low temp so that you don't accidentally burn yourself. Moving on to our next piece of heart decor, we are going to be creating some heart bowl fillers. I showed you in a couple videos past how to create your own no-sew fabric hearts, and this is kind of a different take on that. So to do this, I grabbed the felt hearts from the Dollar Tree. They come in a pack of about 4 or 6, and for this project, you're going to need 4 because we're going to be making 2. And it is so easy. I grabbed my jute from the Dollar Tree and using it just like I would a needle and thread, I went a little more than 3/4 of the way around my felt heart. And then I grabbed some of my filler from Joann Fabrics and just filled up my heart. However much you do or don't fill up your heart is totally up to you. I wanted mine to be like a medium-sized pillow, so I filled them up. Again, if you don't have filler, you can use scrap fabric, pieces of paper, or even a plastic bag to fill up your hearts. Then once I had gotten all the way around my heart, I cut down my jute so that it was a little bit easier to work with, and I just tied a knot to keep everything in place. To give the craft a little bit more of that farmhouse touch, I decided to go with some red and white gingham ribbon. This was the larger kind of thick ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I just cut it in half so that I was able to create something that was a little bit thinner and smaller. And then I went in with a little bit smaller of a jute bow and placed that down in the center. For the next DIY, I wanted to do something that was still Valentine's Day themed, but kind of outside of the realm of the usual pinks and reds. So I went with these farmhouse hearts that are hanging in a garland form. To start off, I had a hanging heart sign, and each heart had a letter on it and it said welcome. This was a great deal from the Dollar Tree because for only $1.25, you got a bunch of these hearts. So I had 4 left over after I had finished all of my Valentine's Day projects for the year, so I wanted to create this hanging sign. To start off with, I am covering the hearts in some paint. I used the color Mineral by Waverly, and then once that was dry, I went in with one thinner coat of the shade Victorian Blue to give that blue-gray look to the hearts. Once that was all dry, it was time to start embellishing our wood hearts. I started off with some lace, and for 2 of the hearts, I put it at a diagonal, and then for 2 of the hearts, I put the lace on pretty straight on. Once the lace was all on the hearts, I went in with a plain solid ribbon and wrapped that around the top. And then I went in with one more smaller, a little bit more detailed piece of lace and put that over top of the white ribbon, mostly because you could see the hot glue gun marks through the white ribbon. So I didn't like that. So I tried to cover it up with the lace. Then the last thing that I did on the hearts was add these little jute bows. And I mostly added the jute because I wanted it to tie into the jute that I am using for the hangers. I started off by just cutting pretty long pieces of the jute and hot gluing them to the back of the hearts. Then once all of my longer jute strings were adhered to the hearts, it was time to kind of play around with the placing of the hearts, how I wanted them to go. I went with a pretty staggered pattern so that when it's hanging, you can still see all 4 of the hearts. And then once I was happy with the spacing and the placement, I went ahead and tied a knot up at the top of our hanging hearts. Lastly, to tie in the lace on the hearts, I went ahead and I had a little bit spare lace ribbon, so I just tied that in a knot up at the top. I really liked this hanging just in my dining room area, but you could also place it on a door hanger and have it on the outside of your door, or just use it as an indoor sign like me. I had so much fun making shabby chic Valentine's Day DIYs last year, so I wanted to at least do a couple this year. So for this one, I found some gorgeous tissue paper, so I wanted to use it in a DIY. I just didn't know how. So I had some of those leftover hearts from the long welcome sign, so I thought this would be the perfect vessel for that really pretty tissue paper. I just grabbed a paintbrush and painted on some Mod Podge. There was some red paint left over on my paintbrush, so that's why the red is kind of showing up, but it dried clear, so it didn't even matter. Then I put the tissue, I did pull it apart because it was 2-ply, so I made sure it was the thin part of the tissue, and I just laid that right on top of the heart and kind of pressed it nice and wrinkle-free with my hands, and then it was just really easily able to rip off that excess little bits of tissue paper around the heart. I also fussy cut, which was just as close as I possibly could, cutting out various butterflies out of the tissue paper and adhering that down with a little bit more Mod Podge. I'm going to be placing the heart on a stained Dollar Tree palette. I added a little bit of jute on the side of the palette for some fun texture, and I wanted to use these shabby chic stickers that I found, but wasn't really sure how. And what did you know? It had a butterfly sticker, so I thought that was perfect to add on to our heart. I completed it with a small jute bow and also tied together those jute strands on the side of the palette, kind of cinched it in at the center. And I had a button that said handmade with love, so I thought that went perfectly with our shabby chic DIY. If maybe you don't have time for a DIY, but you still want to incorporate some Valentine's Day spirit into your home, I have some free printables here. I will link them down below. I placed them in 2 of my favorite Dollar Tree frames, but you could use any frames that you have around the house. Be sure to check those out in the description box. This one might look complicated, but it was actually really simple to make, and I know that you can make it too. First part of this DIY is the most time-consuming one, and it is taking apart a puzzle. This is one that I got from the Dollar Tree. It's an Ariel Disney one, as you can tell, and actually after I opened it, I did complete the puzzle over the weekend before then kind of destroying it, and I created 4 different shades of red, pink, white, and almost like a magenta one. Originally, I was going to use that sheet of cardboard that I just showed you to create a heart that looks like this, but then I was at the Dollar Tree and this heart was exactly what I needed, and I knew it would be more sturdy than the cardboard and just a lot easier. If you've ever tried to cut cardboard, you know that stuff is really hard to cut. So I peeled off this love sign. I thought that it would come off a lot nicer than it did and I can use it for a future project, but it didn't really. I saved it just in case, but it kind of had some residue left. And again, this project is so simple. It is just time consuming. Painting all of the puzzle pieces. It did take me about 2 episodes of a Netflix show, but once that was done, assembling it was pretty easy. I picked up this puzzle saver from the Crafter's Square section, and you can see me reading the label because I couldn't find the ingredients and I didn't really know what this was. I liked that when I opened it, it had this like stopper. I don't even know what you would call this, spatula, and you were able to smear it on. I was trying to figure out how this was different than Mod Podge, and the only real difference that I saw is that it was very, very glossy, whereas Mod Podge, well, you can buy a glossy one, but also a matte one. And the one thing that I really liked about it was that it was clear. Mod Podge kind of has like a milky white look to it, and it does dry clear, but every once in a while you'll have a bubble or something where the Mod Podge doesn't dry clear. So I think that if you see this puzzle saver at your Dollar Tree, you should pick it up. It's also a much larger bottle, and you're going to get more than what you would in that smaller Mod Podge jar that the Dollar Tree sells. And right now I am just creating a base layer. I don't know why, but I was very scared that I was going to run out of puzzle pieces about halfway through, so I put them very sparingly down. And spoiler alert, I ended up with a lot of extra puzzle pieces to use in other DIYs. So the 500 puzzle piece is definitely more than enough to cover this sign. And This part, again, it's really easy. It just kind of takes a long time. Put on some YouTube, put on a favorite show, and just go in and put down all your puzzle pieces. I did leave it for an hour. That's what the bottle said to say. And then I just kept layering it up. So adding on more of that Puzzle Saver glue and adding more puzzle pieces. I ended up doing about 3 layers, and that looked like this. So once that was all dry, I am going to be adding my arrow sign that says "Love You to Pieces." I picked up this wood arrow from the Dollar Tree, and I'm cutting off the rope that it came with, but I will be using that later. And first things first, we are going to paint this arrow white. I'm using my go-to, my Waverly white chalk paint. And then once the arrow was completely painted, of course, I couldn't just leave it white. If you know me, I like to distress everything. So I went in with a chip brush from Apple Barrel, as well as my go-to dark brown shade from Apple Barrel. It's called, I believe, Cypress Umber or Burnt Umber. Something with an umber, and it is my go-to dark brown color. It's the darkest brown they make, so if you're in Walmart or a craft store, you'll know which one to pick up. And I'm just kind of dirtying up those edges so it adds a bit of definition. And then I went ahead and used some vinyl to say "Love You to Pieces," but you could also freehand this or use some letter stickers. And there was a little bit of white space at the end of the arrow, so I grabbed one of these wood hearts, of course, shocking, from the Dollar Tree, and added that to the end of the arrow before grabbing my hot glue and hot gluing the arrow down at an angle on top of our puzzle piece heart. The final step was adding the piece of rope that came with the arrow from earlier and just hot gluing that down to the back of my puzzle piece heart. My next DIY is a Love Lives Here wood house. I saw a similar version of this that the Dollar Tree was selling, but never had it in stock at my store, so I had to make my own. As you can tell, this wood house is from Christmas. I picked it up when they have all of their Christmas stuff on sale for 50 cents at the Dollar Tree, and I am completely deconstructing it. Now, they do have a house currently out for Valentine's Day that I believe says "love" on it, and then they also have one, if your store already has Easter stuff in stock, they do have one for Easter. So we're just going to be using the back of this. So whichever one that you find is going to work. I took off the roof part of the house and then I just flipped it over, and I am painting it white, not paying too much attention to, again, where the roof is, because we're going to be covering that, and just getting a good opaque base coat. Then I picked up these heart toothpicks, mostly because I thought they'd be cute little coffee stirrers for in my kitchen to have during Valentine's Day. But at first I thought that I could use this as the hearts coming out of the chimney, but they were a little bit too small. But I did utilize the toothpick portion of it, and I dipped them in a dark gray color, so you can see that they are not their natural wood color anymore. And then I have these larger wood hearts from the Dollar Tree that came in a pack, and I am using 2 red and a pink one and trying to measure out exactly what length I want them to be coming out of the chimney. And it didn't work. The roof wouldn't lay flat if I put them on that side, so I had to flip the sign over, hot glue them to the back, and then I had a nice flat surface to re-hot glue down the roof section of my house. This part you could totally freehand, but I already had my vinyl out from the previous project, so I went ahead and cut out 2 windows. Again, you can draw them or you can use stickers too. Then for the door, I just took a piece of cardboard and cut it into a square, and I'm using this shade. I've loved using it for Valentine's Day. It's called Berry Red by Apple Barrel, and I think it's a really pretty but not too intense red color. Then I went ahead and also put down "Love Lives Here," another thing that you could freehand or use sticker letters for. And the heart that I took from the toothpick didn't go to waste. I used that as a little doorknob on the door. And to make this a stand-up sign, I hot glued 2 tumbling tower blocks or Jenga blocks to the back of the house so that it would stand up. I had my first attempt at Shabby Chic DIYs last week, and I was feeling a little inspired and kind of let it flow over into this DIY for this week. Similar to the last DIY, I am taking a house not from this season. This was out, of course, during the summertime, and I knew that I would use it for something. At first, I thought that I could peel off the mermaid saying, but unfortunately I couldn't. It was coming out in pieces, so I just painted over the entire thing using my white Waverly chalk paint. Now I am creating a buffalo check very similar to what I did last week. I absolutely loved the way that it came out, except this time I'm going to use very muted pale tones of pink. So I am laying down the tape first in this vertical way, and I'm using a little piece of tape as a spacer. It's just a really nice way. You don't have to break out that measuring tape and make sure that everything's perfect. It acts as a really nice spacer. So the pale pink color that I'm using in this DIY, I've used in a couple this week and last week. It's called Seashell Pink by Folk Art, and I really love it. I think it came out so perfect in all of the Valentine's Day DIYs. Then I peeled off my tape. I don't let it dry on the first go around, so I just peeled it off, and now we're going to be working horizontal. You're doing the exact same thing, except this time horizontal, and you are going to be using the exact same color, so you're not switching up color shades. I'm going to be going in again with that seashell pink color, just painting this time horizontally. Also, this time, do not remove the painter's tape. We are going to leave that on and let this dry. After that layer of paint has fully dried, we are going to go back in with another layer of painter's tape. And this time we are going to be going over the base squares. So whatever color you started off with, usually that's going to be white, and it is in this case. You can't really see it in the video with the lighting, but it is a lot more visible in person. So I'm just going over again vertically over those white squares. And this time I took the shade Watermelon and mixed it with a little bit of black paint to kind of have this muted mauve color. And I'm going over that and letting it completely dry. And then when I revealed it, the pink and white buffalo check was complete. I absolutely love the way that this came out. Next, we're moving on to the true centerpiece of this DIY, and it is using the wood hearts from the Dollar Tree. They come out with these wood hearts every single year. They are always something that you can rely on them coming back in stock with. And I just took a wet paper towel and some brown stain and stained the heart. I still wanted it to have that wood look to it, but just a little bit darker than the natural state. Now I am experimenting with two different types of lacy ribbons. I wanted it to wrap around one side of the heart and then just kind of be left free flowing and the other side. So I'm just playing around with how I wanted these pieces of lace to go across. And once I figured that out, I went ahead and added a little bit of hot glue. You have to be careful with the lace because the hot glue comes through the little holes in it. And then because I wanted it to look like it was wrapping around, I flipped it over and hot glued it to the back. For the little rosebud that I added to this, the Dollar Tree came out with their foam roses. And I'm not gonna lie, when I saw them in stores, I wasn't sure if they were supposed to be a little kid craft or if I could actually make them look nice in a DIY. But by adding the little pieces of boxwood to the petals, I think it came out really good, and I hope that it doesn't look like a little kid's DIY. I actually really liked how the foam roses came out. My next Valentine's Day DIY might just be my favorite, and I think because I kind of created it as an homage to vintage love letters. I really love this DIY because I created everything with supplies that I already had. So I took this galvanized heart sign that I picked up over the summer when the Dollar Tree came out with a lot of their galvanized signs, but I saw that they do have the hearts back out again. And I took some paint to just distress this. Again, I'm kind of going with the vintage love letters inspiration for this DIY. Then I took some scrapbooking paper and a doily to just create that delicate vintage touch. And for the edges of the scrapbooking paper, I am just slowly and gently ripping it again so it has that worn love letter kind of vibe. Then I hot glued down the side of the paper doily into place and then added a bit of glue stick glue to adhere the scrapbooking paper down on top. I added a little bit of brown paint just to give it that weathered look, and then I moved on to some more embellishments. I picked up these little wood hearts from the Dollar Tree, so I will be hot gluing that down soon. And then I wanted to make a little banner that said love, so I got some more scrapbooking paper that I had and cut out 4 little triangles, and then just took a black marker to write out love. Then I grabbed a small piece of jute to just hang across the galvanized heart, and I hot glued the love banner into place. Then I went deep into my craft supplies and I found this small Sola wood flower, as well as these 2 really adorable white heart buttons. So I knew that I wanted to use those, and I also had a long piece of this lacy heart-shaped ribbon. So I cut out a little bit of that, and I was trying to figure out where exactly I wanted to place it, and I liked it down along the side. So I grabbed some hot glue and laid that in place, and then I hot glued down the Sola wood flower. I will have their link down below if you wanted to check out any of their items. Then I hot glued down those hard buttons before adding a bit of hot glue and jute as a hanger. I actually really liked how this turned out just using it as a standing up sign, but you could always hang it too. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, keep searching, keep creating.